Hey folks, welcome to week 2 of DMD 320 application and mobile design. Welcome back. All right, this week we have a whole bunch of stuff to get through, so let's take a look. Let's head down to modules here, and we'll go to module 2. Now, last week, which is our very first week, we just did sort of an overview of the class, talked about the basic structure of how we're going to work on our projects, and just talked about the evolution of mobile design over the years. Now, this week, in week 2, we are going to dive right into all of the tools and available resources that we are going to use in this class. So let's take a look at the week 2 overview here, and then we'll come back to the specific resources. All right, so the goal this week, of course, is to go over the course tools, the resources, and the project structure. Now, last week in class, we reviewed the basic project structure, so that remains the same, but this week we want to get into a bunch of specifics. Now, later in the week, we're going to dive into Apple Xcode and Swift and talk about those platforms and exercises that you guys are going to be doing throughout the entire semester. We're not going to do that today. We'll get to that on Wednesday. Today, however, we're going to go through everything under here, under Discuss and Demonstrate. We're going to look at our All About Adobe XD. Quick mention to Photoshop and Illustrator. We're going to talk about the icons and UI elements that are available to us, and a quick review of these handouts here, ideation techniques, wireframes, and usability testing, which you have seen before, definitely in DMD 120, which is User Experience and Interface Design class, and if you've already taken the Web Design 1 class, you will know them from there as well. The consumable this week, our sort of quote-unquote textbook reading, is this video here. Make sure that you watch this video this week. It talks about common design patterns for Android mobile devices. Now, it's an Android-specific video, but frankly, the design patterns that they're talking about for mobile devices is actually germane to pretty much all smartphones and mobile devices, whether it be iOS-based or Android-based, so it doesn't really matter. The person who does this video is just using Android as their basis, but it's a very useful conversation about types of patterning and where to put content in a mobile environment. Watch the video, it's great. All right, so then we'll talk about our homework later on in the week when we get to Xcode, so don't worry about that right now. Okay, so if you go to, you can download each of these items we need either by clicking on these links here, or if you go to Files and go to our Week 2 folder, you can see that a bunch of the stuff we need is right here. And then if you go back to Files and go to our Resources folder, there's the rest of the stuff we're going to need. So the Week 2 folder and the Resources folder is where you're going to find all this stuff. You're going to want to download everything in the Resources folder in the Week 2 folder and get it on your hard drive or in your cloud storage, because these are things we're going to actively be using in class for both of our major projects. So let's get everything together. Okay, so back to what it is we're going to go over. Let's go over them in the order they're presented here, just for the sake of clarity. Okay, so first things first, Adobe XD. So that is our one and major piece of software that we're going to be using in class. Now, we are going to be using Photoshop and Illustrator, of course, but that is to sort of prepare content, whether it be photographic content or graphics or vector objects or typography, special typography or whatever. So that's what Photoshop and Illustrator is for content creation. But the layout, functionality, and prototyping of our mobile apps that we're going to be building is, of course, being done in XD. And we demonstrated this last time with the general workflow. Now, just in case you need some extra practice with Adobe XD, we have the All About Adobe XD handout that you can download or get from our Week 2 folder. Now, you've been using Adobe XD since DMD 120. We introduced it actually at the tail end of DMD 105, and then you use it all through DMD 120, at least half of that class. And again, if you've taken a web design class, you have more practice with it. But just in case you want to keep practicing with it, and you really should, this handout is great. There's a ton of useful videos here on page 1, right? All about the XD homepage, how to get started with XD, XD basics, creating prototypes, experience design links and pages. And remember that recently, in the past 6 months to a year, Adobe has updated how the prototyping links work. They're more robust now, so definitely become more familiar with those. And also the sharing functionality. So these videos are great, and they get obviously more and more complex as you go through the videos. Now down on page 2, there's a specific Adobe XD class if you really want to dive more deeply into the program beyond what you've learned on your own and beyond what I've demonstrated in class. Each of these videos by this guy Greg Rogg, he's really excellent. Each of these are less than 12 minutes, and these are the different topics that he covers. And if you go to this link, it'll take you to his free class. You obviously don't have to do all of these. You can jump around and just cover areas that maybe you need to get a little more information on. And then furthermore, lastly, Adobe has their own XD tutorials at their Adobe XD webpage, and you can see all the tutorials here, and the link for that is right here. So you have 3 possible options here for increasing your Adobe XD knowledge and improving your ability with the software. Your goal here is to make sure that by the time we start Project 1, you are completely comfortable using the software. So this is your opportunity to take advantage of all of these resources, as well as practicing with it on your own, as well as asking me questions about it, and I can demonstrate stuff for you so that you're totally comfortable with the software by the time we get rolling on Project 1, all right? So that's your first major task, is get super comfortable with the software. Now, if you already are, because you've been using it, and of course you took previous classes with it, and you really feel like you get it down, then don't worry about it. This is just a great resource to sort of help you out, okay? All right, next on the list of stuff is, I mentioned in class last time that there are a variety of icons and whatnot that you are going to have access to, so you don't have to design everything from scratch when you're working on your app designs. So let's take a look at some of those. Now, in the resources folder, which is this here, you'll see that everything lives here, right? Let's first talk about the icons. So in the icons folder, you have 4 resources for icons. The huge one is in Adobe Illustrator, so I have that open here. You can take a look. You can use any of these icons in your projects. Now, these are all just done in black and white, except there's a little bit of color in the people heads here. But for the most part, they're neutrally colored. You can color them however you want. They are, of course, vector graphics, and so you can change the colors simply by changing the colors here in Illustrator. Now, there's a few sets. This top batch here is one set. These are all designed to work together. They're a little chunkier, a little blacker. And then this set over here on the bottom left is a thin line set, right? And you can see that there's a lot of common elements. This here is a set of weather icons, which may or may not come in handy for what you're doing. This is a set of icons representing different types of people, which can certainly come in handy. And then over here we have some e-commerce ones for Visa and PayPal, because you may need that for your app design as well. Furthermore, I told you that the top of every smartphone screen that we're designing for our app has to maintain some consistency for the operating system, right? And so there's always certain things that show up all the time, like the clock, the connectivity bars, the Wi-Fi signal, and the battery life. So you can simply copy and paste these, recoloring them however you want, drop them into XD. Now XD, remember, supports all vector graphics, so you literally can just copy and paste these items one at a time into XD, or you can literally drag and drop them from Illustrator right over to XD. All right, so this is one collection of icons that you are allowed to use. And then the other 3, these collections here, are actually by some pretty famous designers. Lance Wyman, Burrow Destruct icons, and Anto Irene have made these. So this is Lance Wyman's set. This is kind of a fun promotion that Adobe did with these designers. But what's great is you get access to the icons and you can use them however you want. So there's black on white and then white on black. Tells you a little bit about Lance Wyman and what he is all about. So that is his. This is Burrow Destruct, which is a group of designers. You can read about them and get to know who they are. And this is the set of icons that they designed that you are free to use. And this here is Anton and Irene. It's a team of people. You can read about them, get to know them a little bit. And again, these are their icons that you can use. So 3 sets of icons. in XD, and then one jumbo collection of icons in Adobe Illustrator. Now, if you want to find your own icons, you can certainly find those too, but please make sure they're vector-based, because they're going to need to be scalable and recolorable. So if you want to find those from some stock sites, you can do that. Otherwise, feel free to use the ones we have. And of course, you're certainly welcome to design your own, but I am kind of building this so you don't have to do that, because really we have a lot to do, and you may not have time to be designing your own icons. Okay, next we're going to need some common user interface elements. So again, in our resources folder, we have these Apple iOS interface elements. So this is a full XD file. And I did say last week that we're going to be designing for the Apple iOS environment, only because it is the most widely adopted mobile environment in the United States right now. We just as easily could have been designing for Android as well, but since we don't really have the time to design for both, we're going to stick with iOS. So these are all iOS elements. So let me zoom in so you can sort of see what you're getting here. So you get sort of screen layouts that you can copy and paste and reuse that show common iPhone elements. This, by the way, is for the iPhone 10, not the most up-to-date iPhone. The iPhone 11 is, but this works just fine. So you can incorporate these into your design, so you have these common elements that are already pre-designed by Apple. We also have tabbed pages with stars, both white on black on white and white on black. If you're specifically looking for UI elements, again, there's that top header right there that's similar to the one I gave you on Illustrator, but these are the Apple-specific ones. So if you want to grab those, you certainly can, as well as a variety of different types of banners, push buttons, and overlays. More UI elements. This is in the control section, so if you're looking for, say, a volume slider, well, it's right here. Just pick it up and take it. If you're looking for interlaced tabs, well, those are right there. If you're looking for toggle buttons, those are right there. Now, these are grouped together, you'll notice, but of course, if you were to, let's zoom in a little bit here. If you were to multi-click into them, you can just grab certain elements. So if all I want is the toggle button, I can just pick that up and drag it over to my file or copy and paste it and you're in business, okay? If you're looking for a text field, so on and so forth, the contextual grammatical pop-up, cut, copy, lookup, those sorts of things, those are all there. So meaning that when you are designing your apps for class, I want you to be spending your time on designing your app, not having to redesign interface elements that already exist in the world. So when you want to demonstrate actions or things that are germane to the operating system, you're just going to get them here. These are all Apple designed and specific. By the way, these are given away for free by Apple on their developers website. So they're easy enough to track down. I just downloaded them in advance so everybody had them. If you want to have the Apple keyboard or the audio conversion screen when you're speaking into your phone, or even some emojis, you are in business. So all this stuff is here ready for you to go, okay? Screen templates, etc., etc. So feel free to use those as needed for our projects. All right, so that's a great resource. Okay, next, now these three are reviews. You've already seen these. We went over these in the UX UI class. And if you took the web design class, we went over them again there. So you're like, why the heck are we going over them a last time? Well, because these are things that are important and that are germane to all web content creation. But I'm not going to bore you by going through them in detail here. I just want you to know that they're available, right? If you're looking for ways to come up with ideas and brainstorm your projects, this is the ideation handout. This goes over different ways of doing that. Of course, by now, given that you guys have been around for a while here, I imagine that you have your own brainstorming techniques that you are already happy with. But if you want to try some new stuff, check these out. Wireframe mockups. Yes, we're building wireframes. I showed you the example of them, how we're doing them in XD. You are not required to do them on paper, right, like this. However, you should continue to do them on paper for yourself as part of your brainstorming techniques, as part of your planning, if you find that helpful. I would definitely recommend continuing that practice for yourself, because out in the real world, it's very common to continue to do wireframes on paper. So don't lose that practice. Even though you don't have to turn them into me specifically, it is a skill that you should continue to keep developing. And then lastly, usability testing. This is that what is usability testing handout that we used in our previous class. Again, you're not turning in the results of your usability testing for this class like we have for previous classes, but I still expect you to be doing usability testing for the veracity of your projects on your own. When you turn in a finished project, I am going to assume that you have shown it to some people and walked them through some usability testing questions so that you know that it's a good design. And if it's not, it'll be pretty obvious by the way it's designed. So don't try to fool me. Seriously, though, for good design practice, make sure that you're doing some usability testing. By now, you guys should have this under your belt. So you might want to start identifying some people who can help you out with this remotely. Speaking of which, the nice thing about working in XD is you can submit your prototypes and send people the links remotely so they can test them out and give you some usability testing feedback without having to see them in person, particularly since we're not really working on paper as much. Okay, so that is that for right now. That is all the stuff you have for class in terms of resources, guides. Make sure you are comfortable with XD. Download all those things so you have them. Okay, next class on Wednesday, we're going to dive right into Xcode and Swift, and I'll give you an overview about what that's about and how those weekly exercises are going to work. All right, make sure you watch this video too. Don't forget. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Take care.